Hello, ZombieTactics here again today, reviewing a couple of short-barreled revolvers for your use in fighting the oncoming hordes of the undead. You don't usually see the revolver of this kind as the primary handgun for defending yourself against zombies, but there is an important use for them, and that is that most encounters, when you're really going to need a weapon the most, are going to occur whether you're talking about zombies or just plain, self-defense in a normal world, somewhere on the order of 7 yards or under. That's about 20 feet or under. That covers like 90-something% of all of the handgun encounters, according to FBI and other police statistics. So a weapon like this that really only has an effective range, or I should say a useful range because of the accuracy of the weapon, of about 7 to 10 yards, is still a good choice. It's also very compact. You'll notice that in either one of these pistols that my hand just about covers them all up. Revolvers do have the advantage of being very reliable. There's not much that can go wrong with them, and there's nothing that can kind of get gummed up in the works as you're using them. Two very popular choices in snub-nosed pistols here, probably the most popular choices right now. The Smith & Wesson 442 Airweight and the Ruger LCR. Both of these pistols fit within a certain niche, and that is these small, some people would say snub-nose revolvers. They have identical barrel lengths. I'll show you this on camera like that. If I put them right next to each other, you'll see that they're identical if you match up the cylinder to the cylinder. And I say that just by way of noting the fact that it's a little difficult to tell that from the company literature online. Ruger has the technical specifications out for this, showing that it's 1.8 something or other inch long barrel, and the Smith & Wesson Airweight shows a 1 7/8 of an inch barrel. It turns out that's exactly the same length as I just demonstrated here. In both cases, they are 5-round revolvers. They will carry 5 rounds at a time before you need to reload. Same with the Ruger. And again, for short distances. Comparing the two revolvers, both of which are excellent choices, the Smith & Wesson does weigh a little bit more than the Ruger. And this is because the Smith & Wesson, the entire frame and grip area under the handle here is aluminum, with really just the cylinder itself and the barrel being made out of a steel material. They have to be made out of that to be tough enough to handle the pressures of a handgun round. The Ruger is a little bit more, I don't know if to call it advanced or just more modern design. You'll notice here there's a clear kind of a point where you can see that we're no longer having aluminum and we're going to a polymer material. This is similar to how a lot of modern handguns are made, a lot of modern semi-automatic handguns, I should say, like a Glock, like a Smith & Wesson M&P, like a Ruger SR9. This amounts to, and the cylinder here is steel as well as the barrel, also in that case. This amounts to this weapon weighing a bit less than this, and it's amazing because the difference is only about 2 ounces that you really do feel that this is a heavier revolver in your hand than the Ruger. That does make a difference about the shootability of the weapon, and we'll talk about that as well. One of the other differences is the, by the way, you've seen that these have no rounds in it this time. The Airweight has a pretty typical pull on the trigger. It's heavy, and I can see this becoming fatiguing out at a range. It's heavy. It does have one good thing going for it, and that is that you can definitely tell when that trigger is about to break. There's like a detente or a little stop there right before it's going to go click. The Ruger, on the other hand, has an extremely smooth trigger. The pull on it is just, it's the nicest pull on any revolver I've ever heard or felt. It's a little more difficult to tell where that break is going to occur, but overall I'd give kudos to the Ruger here. This is by far one of the nicest feeling triggers in a double action revolver that I've ever encountered. By the way, these are double action. You notice that there is no hammer back here. Pulling the trigger both cocks the weapon, chambers the next round, and fires the pistol in both cases. Shootability wise, there's some other important differences here. You'll note that the grip on the two weapons is a little different. The Airweight is made out of a synthetic material. It does give you enough purchase, enough stickum, so to speak, in your hand to get a good grip of it. But you'll notice that the grip is really on both sides of the frame only, and that you've got the aluminum back part of the frame that will be making contact with the palm of your hand, or the meat of your hand here, the heel of your hand. The Hogue designed grip, and that's important because Hogue is famous for making excellent aftermarket grips, of the Ruger is rubber. It's all the way around, including the back strap here, and this does amount to a much stickier grip in your hand. You can really get a hold of that quite easily. Firing wise, it's interesting what happens with this. When shooting standard .38 special rounds through the Airweight, it's plenty comfortable. Not too bad at all. Same thing with the Ruger, but there is a difference in the way that they feel. The Smith & Wesson feels kind of like you get a sharp kick out of it. A sharp kick, and it seems like quite a bit of muzzle flip compared to the Ruger, which seems like more of a dull thud back in your hand with not so much flip up. And I think that's just because you've got the frame of the gun here actually contacting your hands. In both cases, going to 38 plus P rounds is really uncomfortable. I mean, really uncomfortable. You don't want to shoot a whole box of 20 or 50 out of these. You just don't want to. It just plain hurts your hands. Here again, this just plain rocks back in your hand, and I've had this little edge here go boom and hit me right in the web here a few times when shooting plus P ammunition, and it's very uncomfortable and just plain hurts after 5 rounds or so. You know you don't want to shoot that again. Same thing with the Ruger. Very uncomfortable, but not as much of a tendency to get a sharp object hitting you back in the hand here. And overall, the edges of the Ruger are a little smoother and a little bit more rounded to begin with, sort of space age. I've heard about the Ruger that it has a problem with speed loaders, and so I tried that out, and I noted that I didn't really seem to have any trouble at all getting a speed loader to work effectively with the Ruger. It seems to work just as fine as any other revolver that I've ever used. On the Airweight, though, even though I've never heard of a problem with it, I did encounter this, that when I put the speed loader in there and I pull it, it sort of wants to stick on the edge of the grip here. And in either case, I don't think it's a showstopper. It's just something to be aware of. Both of these guns shoot well at distances of 10 yards, which I think is about the maximum distance that you'd want to use a short snub-nosed pistol like this. I get groupings of 3 inches, which for me is pretty good for a revolver like this. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend either of them as sort of anti-zombie weapons for your bug-out bag, your emergency kit, or a pocket gun. Of course, obey all the local laws in your area, and happy survival in the coming zombie apocalypse. This is Zombie Tactics again, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.